Hey guys, Conceptual Concept 6.9 here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Today we are doing a pretty extensive ammo test. We are going to be testing, I think it's 14 or 15 types of 7.62x39 ammo. We're going to be testing it for consistency and accuracy. And I've got a few different ammos that are no longer available. So I want to see if what we're getting now is the same, worse, or better quality than what we used to get. So we'll be testing all of these through a couple different rifles. I have a 16-inch SIG MCX. I have this to have 16-inch velocity because I don't have any 16-inch AKs at the moment in 7.62x39. So I want to test the velocity out of this. This is also a more accurate rifle than my AK. So we'll be able to see the optimum accuracy out of it. And love or hate SIG, it will present some data points, but I'm going to be testing each ammunition out of both rifles just to see how it performs out of my 14.5 Alpha AK as well as this SIG MCX. And we're going to be pitting old against new just to see if we're getting better or worse stuff than we used to, or if it's the same. We'll find out. So bear with me. We are going to be shooting at 50 yards. Simple reason is the long range bay has been pretty busy today. And unfortunately, it would take me 6-7 hours to get all the filming and all the testing done. And I don't have that much time today. And I want to get this information out. But bear with it because 50 yards, you still can measure accuracy. If a gun's capable of a certain MOA accuracy at 50 yards, it's going to present the same accuracy at 100. Just nature of the beast. So we'll do our accuracy testing at 50. We'll be pitting both rifles against each other, and we'll be testing the velocities out of each of them. So what we have today, in the magazine of this rifle, I have Hornady Black. So I don't have the box presented, but let's go through the old ammo that's no longer available. We've got Russian Tula ammo. This ammo I don't expect to perform very well. Tula ammo has been pretty meh so far. We've got this Russian hunting ammo that I've had really good success hunting coyotes with. It's pretty spicy stuff in my experience, but I haven't actually chronographed it yet. So we'll see how this performs. This is no longer available either. If someone could let me know who manufactures this, because I'm not exactly sure. I'll go ahead and put that up there. And it's got those markings there as well. But it's pretty spicy. It's worked pretty well against coyotes, so really enjoyed it. Now, the crowd favorite, we've got Barnaul green and red box. I had to bum this from a friend. I ran out of Barnaul, unfortunately, so thank you to my friend who bummed me this. You know who you are. And we've got Norinco silver and red box. One of the ammos that were asked for was, I think it was green and red or blue and red Norinco. I couldn't find any of that, but I did find silver and red, so we'll see how that does. Then, really cool ammo I've been stowing away for a while is this cheetah ammo. It is from Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, so we'll see how African ammo holds up to the rest. I'm really curious, but this is out of Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, but pretty cool stuff there. Now let's get on to the ammos that I'm going to be testing that are currently available. I bought them in gun shops or through Palmetto. So we've got the Palmetto zinc coated. It's their brand new ammo. I think they said they have Hornady projectiles in here as well. We'll see how this holds up. We've got the Saber line, which I didn't test in my Palmetto ammo test. And we've got their standard Soviet arms ammo. I'm really curious how this will hold up. I got the first batch of the original, Soviet arms basic stuff, and it was pretty abysmal. It made Tula ammo look good. It's been 10 months. We'll see if it's holding up better. We'll also see if it holds true to that 2375 velocity as advertised. And we'll see if any of the ammos have different velocities. They're all advertised at the same velocity. However, I've seen multiple reviews with this Saber line that was not exactly, it was a little hotter than what I was testing. Now, I do want to note it is 50 degrees outside, and I'll put the current elevation somewhere up in here so you know how high up we are, because people care about that. It does affect ammunition. So if you are super into, you know, precision shooting, you might be able to decipher that. This is just, I'm not. All right, so now let's get into the other ammos I've got. I've got Igman out of Bosnia. Bought this at a local gun shop. It is current manufacturer. You can get this still, and it's pretty affordable. I think I paid $10 for the box. Then I've got Balam out of Serbia. Brass case ammo. Hopefully that's good. I've got Fort Scott munitions, tumble upon impact. Curious how this will do. It is lighter, so we'll see how far the shift in impact is compared to the rest of these. And lastly, the last two, aside from the Hornady Black that's in the magazine here, the last two we'll be testing is Tela ammo. When we did the Palmetto ammo test, this thing performed much better. It was performing at the velocity Palmetto's advertising, and it was pretty dang accurate as well. This has been what I've been using primarily. If you're looking for 7.62x39, we'll see how it does after this test, but my recommendation so far has been to get the Tela ammo because I've been really impressed with it. And lastly, we've got this Sterling. This stuff is out of somewhere, one of the countries, but this is current manufacturer. You can still get this, which is pretty exciting. And yeah, I'll put where Sterling's from somewhere up in here, but it's current manufacturer. It's a little more expensive. I think I paid $13 a box compared to the Igman. So we'll see how it compares to the rest of them as well. So before we get into all the nerdy stuff, I just want to go ahead and post a time because we're going to be doing shooting filming. And if you're not interested in that, if you're just interested in the results and what did the best versus worst, then we will reconvene forward. I don't want you to have to sit through all the boring shooting stuff. You'll just get the results, right? So this video is pretty lengthy, so if you're not interested into everything, I went ahead and put down timestamps for all the ammos on the right and the overview on the left. Of course, if you can watch the whole thing, it definitely helps me out, but if not, this will save you time. All right, so we're going to start with the AAC standard ammunition first, just this stuff. See how it performs. Let's start with the MCX. We're going to be aiming for the left target. So first thing I want to note out of this review is this is a 16-inch barrel. The standard velocity is actually much more respectable here than my previous review 10 months ago, which was the first batch of the standard AAC ammunition. However, I also want to note that the extreme spread and deviation, this is an anomaly in terms of the groupings that I've gotten. Actually, it has been pretty consistently, abysmally bottom of the pack in terms of consistency. So pay attention to the rest if you feel like it. The rest of the, 5 other groupings that I shoot out of 3 different types of AAC 7.62x39. Because this one did really well, the rest did not do very well. So, yep. Now time for the AK. Let's see how we do. So as mentioned previously, the standard deviation and extreme spread, this is more what I've come to expect out of AAC ammo, which is pretty bad overall. It's not even mediocre ammo at this point. The standard deviation is 44 feet per second, which is not great. Extreme spread is 106.8. I also had a malfunction out of this, so not great. But it didn't group incredibly terrible at 5 MOA out of this AK. That's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Alright, so next up on the list is the zinc-coated, I believe they say they're Hornady projectile bullets, or AAC. Let's see how this does. Let's start with the MCX. So I don't quite know what's going on here. The MCX really seem to like this ammo. However, this is a group of 1. It's the best group out of everything tested today. However, the consistency is arguably one of the worst at 115.1 extreme spread and 43.3 average deviation. So not great consistency out of here. So it might have just been the Stardust aligned and the 5 rounds connected. So take it with a grain of salt, all right? All right, so now we're going to go ahead and try out some of this zinc ammo out of the AK, see how we do. So next up is the silver-coated AAC ammo out of the AK. Again, not incredibly great. It is grouping middle of the pack on the AK, however, it's not great again. So 4.8 MOA, 64.2 extreme spread, and 23 average deviation, or standard deviation. So not incredibly impressive, but not terrible either. It's also average velocity is fairly respectable. All right, next up is going to be AAC Saber. We'll start with the MCX again. So the AAC Saber grouped incredibly respectably out of the MCX. I think the MCX just seems to group better with American-made ammo, and you'll see that in future groupings as well. However, I will tell you that the standard deviation is 27.8 and the extreme spread is 82.4. So you are paying more for the projectile, but I'm not seeing a tremendous amount of performance increase in terms of consistency compared to the other two AAC ammos. Alright, now we're testing the Saber lineup in the AK. See how it does? So the AK did not do as well with the Saber line ammunition as the MCX, which is kind of to be expected. The AK is a 3 to 5 MOA rifle with most ammunition, so 5.6 is not great. The consistency was fairly respectable out of this group, but you'll notice in future groupings, overall the AK does not like US-made ammunition for the most part. Now, there are exceptions, which we'll get into in the future. Alright, so next up we're testing the Sterling ammo. I'll go ahead and annotate somewhere where this is manufactured. But we're testing that. Let's start with the MCX, then we'll move on to the AK. Dropped, cool. Sterling is definitely printing middle of the pack with a 4 MOA group. The standard deviation is 29.3 and extreme spread 80.8. So again, middle of the group. Not great, not terrible, just is what it is. Alright, next up, Sterling with the AK. Let's see how it does. Sterling out of the AK is printing at 5 MOA, the standard deviation being 13.3 and the extreme spread being 41.6, which is fairly respectable. However, didn't group incredibly great, didn't group terrible out of this gun. Part of this is shooter error, part of this is just me. So I wouldn't absolutely hate to have this, but I wouldn't put it at the front of the pack either. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and test Igman ammo, this stuff right here. This guy is from Bosnia, I believe. Now Igman, another middle of the pack ammo for MCX. It did 3.8 MOA. Group with a standard deviation of 33.9 and extreme spread of 82.6. So not bad overall. The velocity was actually also very, very good at 2300.5 average. So they're fairly respectable there. Alright, we are doing Igman again with the AK here. Let's see how we do. Next up is the Igman out of my 14.5 AK. It actually grouped pretty poorly, 6 MOA overall. But one thing I do want to note is it lost the least amount of velocity, well, one of the least, out of the entire testing, losing 1.5 inches a barrel. So it only lost 30 feet per second overall, losing that 1.5 inch a barrel. And so that's pretty impressive. Must be using a different powder. But yeah, there's that. All right, so next up is going to be Balam here.
So next up is Balam. This ammunition performed pretty mediocre out of the MCX, but it had pretty consistent accuracy between the MCX and the AK, which you'll see in the next grouping. So I do think it's fairly consistent overall. Actually, this was among the most consistent velocity-wise out of all of the different ammunitions. 36.3 extreme spread and 12.1 average or standard deviation. So the extreme spread was actually less than a lot of the different ammunition types standard deviation. So pretty impressive overall.
All right, next up is Balam with the AK here.
So as mentioned previously, the accuracy is pretty consistent between the AK and the MCX. The AK only lost 0.3 MOA in terms of the group size. Now, the consistency of velocity did expand a little bit. It got 73.8 on the extreme spread and 26.9 on the standard deviation, which isn't great, but it's not terrible either. So, fairly respectable ammunition. I wouldn't hesitate to buy this either.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and shoot the Tele ammo here. This performed very well on my Palmetto AC ammo test, so let's see if it lives to it.
So next up is the Tele ammo. This usually does incredibly well for me. This printed 5 MOA out of the MCX for this grouping. However, if you remove the flyer, you're closer to 3 MOA right there, so not incredibly bad. Also, I do want to note this is it's actually the hottest ammunition tested here at 24-25 average velocity out of 16-inch barrel, and some of the most consistent. So the standard deviation is 10.3 and the extreme spread is 27.1, leaving it to be arguably the most consistent ammo tested today.
Now we're testing the Tele out of the AK. Let's see how she does.
So, Tele ammo out of the AK printed the best group out of all 14 ammo types out of the AK at 3.25 MOA group, which is pretty good for this one. This is, again, between a 3 and a 5 MOA AK, depending on ammunition type, in my opinion. Also, the consistency is still there. We've got a standard deviation of 13.7 and an extreme spread of 38.5. Again, the extreme spread between also the MCX and the AK is less than the lower grade options, the worse options that we've tested today. So this is definitely among the most consistent ammunitions still available, and it is incredibly cheap. This is my go-to ammo moving forward.
All right, so next up is Fort Scott. I'm really curious how this will do. It is like 15 grains lighter, 10 or 15 grains lighter than anything else we're testing today. Let's see how the shift in impact feels, and let's see how it groups.
Now, the MCX did seem to print this incredibly well. We've got a 3.25 MOA group, but the consistency out of the Fort Scott is not great. It is 36.5 standard deviation, 89.3 extreme spread, and the velocity is lacking overall. It's among the bottom tier in terms of velocity, so not my favorite, but if it does tumble, it does tumble.
All right, Scott AK, let's see how we do.
Now, Fort Scott did prove to be a little more consistent out of my 14.5 AK, so this grouping was a little better. However, the accuracy potential out of it was, again, lacking to a degree. We got 6.25 MOA, which is not great, and about a 4 MOA group, maybe 4.5, with the 4 shots, if we're counting the flyer as my mistake, which I felt pretty confident with this, but...
All right, so next up is going to be Harvey Black. I don't know if you can see that, but going to be shooting it out of both rifles, see how it does.
Now, Hornady Black proved to be one of the more consistent ammunition types we've tested. However, some of the lower velocity ammo types we've tested. But you'll see that consistency translates incredibly well. This is the second best grouping out of the entire testing here out of the MCX. And nothing to sneeze at. You'll notice in the next grouping we test as well, out of this with the AK, it does pretty well too. Now we're going to go ahead and do the AK. See how it does with Hornady Black here? So the first group I was not confident in. I had to take a break. I had been shooting for quite a while and I was pretty tired at this point. So I took about a 15-minute break, came back to it. Top right corner is the second group, and we printed a 3.5 MOA group out of that, which is pretty respectable out of an AK, and the second best group of the AK, and also the second best group of the MCX. So one thing's for certain, Hornady Black is not bad ammunition to go with. However, it is also pretty dang expensive. Alright, next up is Tula ammo here. We'll do the MCX first. So next up is Tula. Tula is kind of considered to be one of the lower quality ammunitions. However, it kind of landed in the middle of the pack. The accuracy out of the MCX was 3.8 MOA, and the consistency really landed it kind of in the middle with 59.7 extreme spread and standard deviation of 23.4. So not incredibly terrible, not great either. So it's just kind of middle of the pack, mediocre ammo. I wouldn't go out of my way or pay extra for this, but if you're choosing to buy it, if you get it at a good deal or you have a ton of it, don't cry about it either. Alright, now Tula with the AK. Let's see how she does. So next up is Tula out of the AK. I got a 5.5 MOA group, standard deviation of 21.3, and extreme spread of 63.8. So at least it's consistent between the MCX and the AK in terms of its inconsistency. So again, nothing to sneeze at, not the worst ammo tested, but not the best either. So take it for what you will. Alright, so next up is this Russian hunting ammo. If you know who makes this, I would love to know. But I can say I've shot a few coyotes with it. It's pretty spicy. I'm curious how it'll do on paper and in terms of velocity and whatnot. Let's see how she does. So next up is the Russian hunting ammo. I've shot quite a few coyotes with this. It's proved to be incredibly spicy in terms of ballistics, all that good stuff. It definitely wrecked those yotes. However, arguably it was the poorest performer out of everything here, which was really a bummer. But we got a 5.25 MOA group out of the MCX with pretty decent consistency. I just think it might be the hollow point bullet and some inconsistencies in the projectile. But here we are. Alright, same Russian hunting ammo, this time out of the AK. Let's see how she does. So I missed taking the picture from the chronograph, so here is everything I wrote down on the spread here. This again performed incredibly poorly even out of the AK, and the consistency was arguably pretty good, so I think there might be something off with the projectile in terms of ballistic coefficient. However, it is, again, pretty spicy. Coyotes really don't like it, and yeah, so close range, not bad. But I probably wouldn't choose this ammo or go out of my way to buy this ammo in the future. Alright, so next up is Barnaul. This is definitely a crowd favorite. Always been impressed when I shoot this, but I haven't actually chronoed it. So let's see how we do with that. So now let's move on to the Barnaul, which is a crowd favorite. Quite a few people have recommended this and commented they think it's going to do the best. It kind of landed middle of the pack in terms of the MCX here. It had a 4.25 MOA group, and the velocity, the consistency in velocity was kind of middle in the pack as well. Part of this might be my shooting, part of it might be the MCX just doesn't like the ammo. But that's what we tested overall here. Didn't do great, didn't do terrible, just decent ammo.
All right, so next Barnaul green and red box out of the AK. Let's see how she does.
So Barnaul, in terms of accuracy, performed a little better out of my AK than it did out of the MCX. Now, the grouping is a little worse, but the AK is a little less accurate. So it was in the top 4 here. And one thing I do want to note is that the horizontal spread here, I'm wondering what exactly is going on, whether the barrel got a little hot or not, but it's the ammo I had, so I just went ahead and rocked it. It got a 4.75 MOA group with kind of middle of the pack in terms of velocity here. So,
all right, so next up we've got Norinco silver and red box. I'm really curious how this will do because I haven't seen much info on how it performs. Now, this is older ammo, so hopefully it's been stored well, but we'll find out.
So next up is the Norinco. The MCX really didn't seem to like it. It got a 4.75 MOA spread, putting it towards the bottom of all the groupings here. However, I do want to note that the ammo itself was incredibly consistent, with a standard deviation of 10.1 and an extreme spread of 28.4. So part of this might be misshooting, but did seem the MCX really didn't seem to like it.
Alright, so now we're trying this Norinco silver and red box out of the Bulgarian AK here. See how she does.
So next up is the Norinco out of the AK. I will take responsibility for this flyer because I really felt myself jerk that to the left when I pulled the trigger. So I do think that this is 3.25 MOA out of the AK. However, overall group is 6.5 MOA. Take it for what you will. But the consistency speaks for itself between the two groups fired. This is some of the most consistent ammunition we tested. AK got 17.1 standard deviation and 47.7 extreme spread. So I'll tell you, I'm pretty impressed with it. Unfortunately, it's been gone for, close to a couple decades now. So if you find it, I would recommend going for it. But if you don't cry about it either.
All right, that's all of it. Alright, so last but not least, we've got this cheetah ammo from Zimbabwe. We'll try it out of the MCX first, as per the rest of this test.
So, last up is the cheetah ammunition from Zimbabwe. So, extreme vertical spread here. Don't really know what's going on, but this is almost like a straight line up and down. Only group I got like that. So, is what it is. However, it did not print incredibly well out of the MCX 5.5 MOA, and the consistency is kind of mediocre. It's middle of the pack with 20.3 standard deviation and 57.3 extreme spread. And lastly, the cheetah ammunition out of the AK. So I don't know if this flyers me. Definitely could have been, so we'll just rule both different groupings. We had 4.25 MOA overall group and a 2 MOA group without the flyer. So might have been me, might not have. Definitely consistent ammunition. We've got a standard deviation of 17.9 and an extreme spread of 42.7. Nothing to sneeze at. So honestly, I can say with definitely some confidence that Africa doesn't know how to make 7.62 by 39 ammo, so we can say that.
There we go.
So we're going to go over the top 4 and bottom 4 between the two rifle platforms. One thing I want to note is the MCX really did seem to like US-made ammunition. Grouped it really well regardless of how consistent it was, because both the AAC Saber and the new silver cased AAC ammo struck the worst consistency out of the group, but they landed on the top 4 of the MCX for whatever reason it is. So personally, I still don't recommend the AAC, but for some reason the MCX really seemed to like it. So next up is the MCX bottom 4, which honestly was a real surprise to me because these were actually the most consistent ammunitions other than the hunting ammo out of the whole group. However, they also were the highest velocity. These were pushing in the high 2300s to low 2400s, so they were a couple hundred feet per second faster than what the MCX really seemed to prefer, unfortunately. So next up is the AK's top four. The AK definitely seemed to favor the hotter ammunition, as well as Hornady Black landed smack dab in the same spot in second place because it is incredibly consistent and good ammo. However, I do want to note that Tele ammo is what I've been shooting for quite a while. I'm on my third case at the moment, and it has proved to be very accurate and reliable between all of my different AKs. So now for the lowest of the groupings. All of these I felt pretty good about with the exception of the Norinco. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough ammo to group the Norinco again, so we got the one group. However, if you discluded the flyer that I put on there, which was my fault, I'm fairly sure it would be 3.25 MOA with a 4-shot group. But unfortunately, no redos. We got 6.5, placing it at the bottom out of all of them. So take it for what you will. I do think it's definitely capable of that better grouping. I might have failed here. So at the end of the day, what ammo do I recommend to most shooters to buy? It is the Tele ammo through and through. I'm on my third case right now. It has been incredibly consistent and accurate out of all my AKs. Didn't do so great out of the MCX, but the MCX really seemed to favor the US-made ammunition, whereas the AKs seem to not care that much. So Tele would be my pick. It's the hottest, it's the most accurate, and it's got borderline match grade consistency. For 4 to 450 a case of ammo, you can't really argue with that. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I know there was a lot to take in and a lot to go over. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.